A silent ship drifts through the darkness of deep space, floating near the edge of a dying star, with its engines broken, and its hull scarred from battles unseen. The lights inside flicker with weak energy, trying to keep the life support on for just a little longer, as the only living soul left inside prepares to send a final message to the galaxy. Commander Vrel, once proud leader of the mighty Krell Empire, now sits alone with blood dried on his armor, and fear carved into his eyes. His hand shakes as he presses the record button. On the console, the screen flickers, and his voice echoes across the void as it begins. This is Commander Vrel of the Krell Dominion. I am the last of the invasion fleet, and this is my final broadcast to all civilizations who can hear me. Heed this warning. Never provoke the humans. Their power is unlike anything we expect. Their fury is beyond what our science could measure. He coughs and wipes a burn from his face. The memory of what happened still fresh and painful. We thought they were weak, soft, naive. We thought Earth was just another resource planet waiting to be claimed. We thought they would kneel like so many before them, but we were wrong, so very wrong. He looks to the ceiling as sparks fall from the wires above. The Krell Empire was confident we had conquered over 30 star systems in less than 100 years. We had weapons stronger than gravity. We had minds faster than light. We had warriors trained from birth. We believed no species could match our force. We believed the humans would be the same easy prey, just another name on our long list of victories. He pauses as the ship groans beneath him. When I first saw Earth, I laughed. I saw oceans, cloud cities with no sky shields and primitive satellites. I told my generals this war would last a day, perhaps two. If they resisted, I promised glory to my emperor. I promised fear to their people. I even recorded a speech to play during their surrender. He stares at the console and shakes his head slowly. But the moment we fired the first shot, everything changed. He touches the side of his face where a scar now runs across his jaw. They were ready not with power, not with numbers, but with something else, something older, something fierce. Their answer was not fear, it was fire and steel and rage. It was a unity I had never seen in any empire, in any species, not even in our own kind. His voice grows heavier. They fought back with everything. They had not just weapons, not just armies, but with soul. They used broken satellites to crash into our ships. They hijacked our code and turned our machines against us. Their soldiers were not bred for war, but they fought with purpose. Their eyes burned with a history of survival, of resistance, of never giving up. He lowers his head and continues. We lost battles. We should have won. We lost generals who had never tasted defeat. We lost control of the skies, the ground, the seas. We even lost control of our minds. Fear crept in and spread faster than any virus we had ever studied. The screen flickers again as the ship shakes violently. I saw cities fall and rise again in hours. I saw humans rebuild in the middle of war zones. I saw them sacrifice without hesitation. I saw them laugh in the face of death. And I knew then we had made a mistake. Not a small one, not a tactical error, but a mistake that would be remembered for ages. He leans closer to the recorder. The humans do not forget. They do not forgive easily. They will not always attack first. But if you come for them, if you strike first, if you think they are weak, you will learn. As we did, you will see your armies crush your ships, shattered, your leaders lost, and your name erased. He wipes his mouth as blood begins to drip from his lips. This is not fear talking. This is the voice of a commander who has seen the truth and now understands the cost of underestimating the unknown. The lights begin to fail around him as the ship loses power. To all who hear this, to all who see Earth as a prize, I say, this remember the Krell, remember Vrel. And remember this warning, do not provoke the humans. Their retaliation is not just powerful, it is legendary. His hand hovers over the send button for a moment, as if unsure whether it is better to let the galaxy learn on its own, but then he presses it, and the message is sent across thousands of light years, bouncing from satellite to satellite, from ship to ship, spreading faster than light. As the ship fades into silence and darkness, the stars above remain cold and distant, and somewhere on Earth someone looks up at the sky, unaware that their world has just become the stuff of legend. A long time before Commander Vrel's broken message reached the stars, it was a moment that changed everything. Began in Sector 4X of the Milky Way, a small science station named Helios. 9 floated quietly near the asteroid belt, assigned to observe distant radio signals and space anomalies, operated by a team of human researchers, with no weapons, no soldiers, just minds curious and full of wonder. Dr. Elena Graves led the team, a woman known for her calm voice and sharp eyes. She believed the universe held peace and knowledge, and always taught her team to speak first, never fight. Her favorite saying was, stars do not shout, they shine. But on that day, the stars seemed to whisper something else, something darker. At 0430 Earth time, the sensors picked up an unknown frequency, something not from Earth, not from any known civilization, a deep rhythm, like a heart beating in metal, a language of power and precision, repeating one message: prepare for assimilation, prepare for the rise of the Krell. The crew did not panic. They were trained for surprises. They sent a response polite and peaceful, asking for identity, asking for purpose. They waited with hope, but no reply came. Instead, the silence grew heavy, and then the sky changed. A shadow moved across the station, not a shadow from a planet or a moon, but from a ship large enough to block the sun, made of black steel and glowing veins pulsing like it was alive. The crew watched in awe and fear as the unknown vessel slowed near the station. Elena tried again, sending messages in different languages, different codes, offering peace, offering science, offering welcome. But the only answer was a single beam of red light scanning the station from top to bottom, as if tasting its structure and soul. Then came the voice, deep, cold, proud: "You are observed, you are noted, you are not ready." And then the beam vanished, and the ship turned and disappeared in the void like smoke in the wind, leaving silence behind. The crew sat, frozen hearts, pounding ears, ringing minds, spinning. Dr. Elena stood slowly, her voice steady but shaken. They scanned us, she whispered, they saw us, and they left like we were ants, like we were dust. Back on Earth, the signal logs were reviewed, governments were alerted, the United Nations called a special meeting behind locked doors. But the public did not know, not yet. The world kept turning, the cities kept buzzing. But in secret, the humans began to prepare, not with fear, but with quiet resolve. A new project was born named Ember Shield, hidden under the ice of Antarctica, led by the best minds across nations, and backed by every country. No flags, no borders, only one goal: to prepare for the day the shadow returned. Years passed without another sign. Some began to believe it was just a glitch, a cosmic trick of light and sound, but not Elena. She knew something ancient had looked at Earth and decided to wait, and waiting meant planning. Then the Krell came back, not with one ship, but with hundreds, cutting through space like blades who claw off every signal from Jupiter to Mars. When dark Earth watched in silence, satellites blinked out, colonies went quiet, and the skies filled with warnings, red and urgent. But this time the humans were ready, not perfect, not superior, but ready. Ember's shield rose from the ice with wings of metal and hearts of fire, hidden weapons powered by sun, and Storm launched into orbit, controlled by minds that had trained for this moment every single day since the first encounter. The first strike came over Neptune. A Krell scout ship moved toward Earth at light speed. But before it could fire, it was torn apart by a net of quantum mines designed by a 16-year-old prodigy from Nairobi who had dreamed of stars since she was 5. The second strike came near the moon, where a team of retired astronauts, now warriors, flew solar jets around a Krell destroyer, distracting it long enough for Earth's rail cannons to pierce its core and silence it forever. The third strike came on Earth itself. A stealth pod landed in the Amazon jungle, deploying machines the size of lions. But local tribes and special units worked together, using ancient traps and drone swarms to stop the machines before they could report back. The Krell had expected fear, but what they found was fire. They had expected surrender, but they met resistance not from soldiers alone, but from teachers, engineers, artists, children, all standing not for war, but for each other. In a hidden Krell war room far from Earth, a commander watched the battle unfold, his face unreadable, his claws tapping against a metal table. He turned to his advisors and said one sentence that would soon reach the ears of Commander Rel. "We have awakened a species that does not break. They bend, they bleed, but they rise and rise again. And if we do not learn this now, we will learn it too late." And somewhere deep in space, the humans prepared their next move, not to destroy, not to conquer, but to survive and to protect not just Earth, but the story of what it means to be human. The Krell were not used to resistance. They were conquerors by nature, spreaders of fear, collectors of planets, and rulers of silence across galaxies. They had crushed empires, stolen sons, erased languages, and ended stories without hesitation or mercy. But this time something felt different, something new, something sharp, like cold fire in the veins of their great war engine. On the flagship, called the Dreadmoss, silence fell across the control deck, not the calm silence of power, but the nervous kind that comes after unexpected pain. Their screens showed the ruins of their scout fleets. Their sensors displayed battle data that did not make sense, losses against beings they had labeled primitive losses, that wounded their pride more than their strength. Commander Zyrus stood tall, his armor glowing with shifting runes, a symbol of past victories across dying stars. He stared at the battle logs, his sharp eyes narrowing at every explosion, every failed assault, every strange tactic used by the humans, tactics that should not have worked but somehow did. He called for silence, raised a claw, then spoke in a voice like thunder trapped in ice. We are not facing beasts, we are facing echoes, and shadows, the kind that remember pain and grow stronger from it. They fight not with strength alone, but with memory and will, and something more, something we do not yet understand. In a hidden command center on Earth, the same silence echoed, but this one was full of thought. Not fear. General Rafik leaned over a glowing table covered in maps, and Alert's team of scientists and strategists sat in silence, each one aware that every breath might be their last if they failed. The room smelled like metal coffee and sweat the smell of survival. Rafik looked at his people, his voice calm and clear. They are powerful, yes, but they are not invincible. We have seen their limits, we have found their weaknesses, and we will not stop until they know what it means to challenge the heart of humanity. Above Earth, a hidden fleet of stealth ships drifted behind the moon, waiting for the signal, each ship filled with engineers, teachers, musicians, former athletes, and scientists trained to fight, trained to build, trained to inspire. The idea was simple: protect Earth not with destruction, but with creation, protect it with minds that could dream beyond death. On Mars, a small colony named Red Haven went dark not because of an attack, but because its people turned off all lights at underground and began whispering old stories to each other, stories of Earth, stories of hope, stories of the first steps on soil not of Earth, but of humanity itself. They knew the enemy watched and listened, so they sent no signals, only silence filled with meaning and memory. Meanwhile, deep in the Krell home system, on the throne of silence, sat the prime oracle, a being older than stars or body, made of living crystal and swirling nebulae. Her mind stretched across galaxies. She had heard the whispers of failure, and now she listened to something strange, to the sound of fear inside her own people. She reached into the void not with hands, but with thoughts, searching for answers, and found the echo of Commander Vrel's last message from the future, a voice full of warning, regret, and all the words repeated like fire through cold halls. Do not provoke them, their retaliation is legendary. She saw what Vrel had seen: burning skies, shattered fleets, the last breath of Krell warriors, and the center of it all, a child holding a broken helmet, looking up at the stars not with fear, but with purpose. And she knew the meaning of the warning, not just about strength, but about spirit, the kind that cannot be measured or defeated. Back on Earth, Elena stood in the ruins of an old observatory, watching the stars fall and rise through her cracked lenses. Her team, tired but strong, scanned the skies for signals, for stories, for signs that the fight was not yet over. She believed in more than weapons. She believed in words, and she began writing not a report, but a message to the stars. She wrote, "We are not your prey, we are not your tools, we are humans, and we burn, we rise, we remember, and we protect. And if you wish to know what lives in the fire of Earth, then come and see, not as conquerors, but as seekers, as guests, not as gods, but as students." Somewhere in space, the Dreadmaw turned its engines toward a distant system, pulling back to heal, to plan, to rethink. And the humans knew this was not victory, but a pause, of breath before the storm. But this time, they had more than fear, they had each other. And while the Krell prepared their next strike, the humans planted more seeds, not a war, but of unity. Children in bunkers learned science, and history artists painted the stars in schools under the ground. Builders shaped machines from scrap and whispers, and soldiers slept with books under their pillows because they knew knowledge would be their true weapon. And high above, in a satellite made from moon rock and hope, a single signal blinked into the void, a message written in every language Earth had ever known, a message that said, "We are ready." The stars looked peaceful from the outside, glowing quietly in the darkness like old memories flickering in the sky. But deep behind that peace of storm was rising a storm made of vengeance, of broken pride, and a fear disguised as strength. Commander Zyra stood before the High Council of the Krell Circle, the oldest warriors, and minds born in fire, bred in war, molded by the collapse of weaker species. They looked at him with cold eyes, questioning his hesitation, wondering why the humans had not yet been crushed beneath their mighty armada. He spoke slowly, with words wrapped in steel and frost. They are not like others who have fought. They adapt, they evolve, they remember, they burn not with fire, but with spirit, and they strike not only with weapons, but with something deeper, something that moves between fear and hope and will. The council whispered in their old tongue, many voices, arguing, many minds, refusing to believe that such a young race could bring the great Krell to a halt. But the data spoke louder than denial. Entire fleets erased battles, lost strategies, unraveled by emotion and unpredictability. A war that was supposed to be over in days had turned into something else. Back on Earth, in a command center buried under miles of rock, Elena stood before a massive map made of light, showing every known ship, every station, every satellite. Her team worked like dancers in chaos, hands flying across screens, eyes locked on information that changed with every breath. She spoke to her team with strength in her voice and fire in her words. They think we are fragile. They think we are soft. They think we cannot strike back. Let them keep thinking while we turn the darkness into our weapon. Near Jupiter, in a hidden ship called the Ember, a young pilot named Kai sat inside the cockpit, his fingers tapping a rhythm against the glass, his ship silent, his mind loud with the voices of those who died. And though still fighting, he was not a soldier by birth, but had become one through loss. His mission was simple, but deadly: sneak into the Krell's forward command relay and destroy it, cut their vision, blind their steps, make the monsters feel lost like humans once did when the sky burned with alien fire. In the far reaches of space, the Prime Oracle watched it all through the ancient device known as the Eye of Memory, a crystal sphere older than most stars, glowing with every death, every heartbeat, every decision. She saw humans in pain, but she also saw something terrifying. She saw their joy. They built in the middle of war. They dreamed while bombs fell. They laughed while they bled. They made art while planets crumbled. They did not just survive. They created, they inspired. And that was something the Krell could never understand. She reached out across the void, sending a secret thought to Commander Zyrith. Do not make the same mistake again. Do not measure humans with the same scale we use for broken empires. Measure them with stories and fire and silence, and you will see the truth. They are not weak, they are wild. Back near Mars, Commander Rafik led a fleet of makeshift ships, each one patched together with Earth's last metals and heartbeats, shields made from melted satellites, engines rebuilt by teenagers who once played video games, now planning real battles across the stars. He raised his fist and gave a single order forward, not for revenge, but for remembrance. Let every strike remind them who we are. Let every move speak of what they try to take. Let every human voice echo louder than their silence. In the middle of the storm, on a tiny moon no larger than a city, a group of scientists discovered something strange, a signal, not human, not Krell, older than both ancient and patient, and waiting at spoken tones, not a fear, but warning, not a conquest, but witness. They decoded only one line. Before it vanished, they walked the path of rage. But carry the seed of stars, do not break the seed, or the stars will burn. No one knew what it meant, but everyone felt its weight, like a whisper before an earthquake, a prophecy, not about destruction, but transformation. And so the humans prepared, not with fear, but with fire. They built more ships, wrote more songs, trained more warriors, hugged their children tighter, and painted their dreams on the walls of shelters, because they knew what was coming, and they would face it not with bowed heads, but with lifted eyes. And in the quiet corners of the galaxy, the Krell began to wonder not if they would win, but if they could even understand what they were fighting against, because for the first time in their long, cold history, they were not feared, they were studied, they were watched, and above all, they were remembered. Beneath the burning sky of Earth, a storm of energy was gathering, not made of wind or thunder, but made of minds and hearts beating. As one, every human across the continents felt it, something rising from deep, within, something old, something powerful, something that no weapon could measure. In the secret base called Horizon, buried deep in Antarctica, General Alvarez stood in silence before a wall covered in names, each name a soldier, each name a sacrifice. His hand trembled not from fear, but from purpose, as he turned to face the war table glowing with red marks scattered across space. He spoke with a voice that cut through the cold. We are no longer defending. We are no longer hiding from this moment forward. We strike. We rise. We remind the stars that humanity never kneels for long. In orbit above Earth, the ship known as the Radiant Echo floated like a silent guardian. Inside its walls, Captain Mira paced, her eyes locked on the data feed. Every signal, every spike of movement from the Krell, her team, watched her with quiet respect, for she was the first to survive a Krell ambush and return with not only her life, but their secrets. She turned and said, prepare the light cannon, aim it at their forward scout. Relay, once it fires, they will know that Earth remembers. They will know we are not afraid to burn the sky, if it means saving our soul. Far away on forgotten moon, base technician Ravi sat beside a glowing core, the first artificial star ever made by humans. It pulsed like a heartbeat, like a promise. It was not a weapon, but a message, a reminder that humans create even when surrounded by chaos. He whispered to the core, as if it could hear, soon you will shine for all of them. Soon your light will reach even the coldest heart of Krell, and they will know what warmth truly means. Meanwhile, in the Krell capital, a place carved from black stone, and Fear the Emperor sat on his throne, surrounded by shadows, his mind filled with visions of Earth, filled with confusion, rage, and disbelief. How had this small blue world become such a thorn in their path? How had they managed to do the impossible again and again? Commander Zyrith stood before him with eyes that held no fear anymore, only truth. He said, they do not win with strength, they win with something else. They win with stories, they win with pain. They win because they have nothing to lose and everything to love. The emperor growled and rose his voice, shaking the chamber enough. Then we will give them nothing to love. We will erase their cities. We will silence their songs. We will bury their names beneath ash and stone. Back on Earth, a team of young minds gathered in a hidden lab led by Professor Zane, a man who once built toys and now designed hope. He and his students were building something never seen before, a device that could send not just signals, but feelings across light years, a wave of emotion, so strong it could crash into the hearts of the enemy and make them feel what humans felt. They called it the Pulse. It carried laughter, tears, courage, memories, everything that made them human, everything that made them more than just flesh and bone. At the same time, in the ruins of New Tokyo, a girl named Hannah sat with a broken violin. Her family lost her home, gone, yet her fingers moved gently across the strings, her music soft, but clear, reaching the ears of soldiers resting beside burning machines. They listened, and they remembered what they were fighting for. Her song traveled far, caught by drones shared across channels. It became more than a melody. It became a battle cry, wrapped in beauty, wrapped in sorrow. In deep space, a group of Krell scouts picked up the sound, confused by its shape, by its effect. One of them paused, his clawed hands shaking as the music played again. And again, something inside him cracked, not with pain, but with wonder. It reminded him of something he had long forgotten. It reminded him of peace. The humans launched a pulse at dawn. Light burst from Earth in every direction, invisible to the eye, but strong enough to move even the stars it passed through, to breathe through silence, through hate. It carried stories of a mother kissing her son goodbye, of a soldier writing to his wife, of a child drawing stars on the wall of a bunker. The Krell felt like a wave, like a scream, like a whisper that refused to be ignored. It broke their patterns, disrupted their plans, made them hesitate for just one breath. And in that breath, humanity struck. The battle had begun again, but this time with a rhythm that matched the heartbeat of Earth, this time with fire, that carried memories, this time with warriors who smiled even as they bled, not because they wanted war, but because they wanted peace too badly to let it be stolen. And in the space between heartbeats, the galaxy turned its gaze toward Earth and saw not just a planet, not just a people, but a promise. Above the burning clouds of Jupiter, a giant ship shaped like a scarf floated without motion. Without sound, its metal skin cracked, its energy core flickering like a dying star. It was the Krell flagship, the last stronghold of their pride, the last hope of their empire. Inside its command chamber, Commander Zyrus stood alone. The other Krell officers lay scattered around in their bodies, broken by fear and confusion in their minds, unable to resist the pulse from Earth, the wave of emotion that had reached even here, where logic once ruled, where order once stood. Now only chaos remained. Zyrus looked into the reflection of his face, his eyes filled with something he had once seen only in humans. Something called doubt. It burned in him like fire, yet it did not hurt. It opened something deep inside, something ancient, something lost. He turned slowly to the central screen and watched the human fleet rising, not in numbers, not in strength, but in courage and belief. Their ships carried scars, their pilots carried memories. They came not to destroy, but to defend, not to conquer, but to warn. He opened a channel to all Krell systems. His voice carried across the stars, to every outpost, to every warrior, to every leader. He spoke not with pride, not with command, but with truth. He said, "We believe we were strong. Because we controlled, we believed we were right. Because we were feared, we believed the galaxy was ours. Because we had no weakness, but we were wrong." He said, "The humans have shown us that weakness is not shame, it is power. When shared pain is not failure, it is fire. When remembered love is not weakness, it is armor when embraced." He said, "They fight not to win, but to survive. They rise not for glory, but for peace. They endure not because they must, but because they choose to. They are not perfect, they are not pure, but they are something we forgot how to be. They are alive in every sense." He said, "We cannot win not because we are weak, but because they have found something stronger than fear, stronger than death. They have found meaning, and in that meaning they become more than warriors. They become a force that even time cannot erase." On Earth, in the remains of the Global Command Center, General Alvarez stood before a cracked screen. Listening to Zyrith's voice, he raised his hand, and all human ships paused, all human weapons lowered, all human hearts waited. He opened a response channel and said, "We do not seek revenge, we do not seek blood. We only seek a tomorrow where no child must fear the stars, where no voice is silenced before it can sing, where no world is forced to kneel." He said, "If you stand down, we will remember you not as monsters, but as brothers who finally listened. If you leave, we will not chase. If you stay, we will not beg. But if you fight, we will not fall." High above the moon, the radiant echo hovered. Mira listened in silence, tears in her eyes, not from pain, but from hope. Her crew watched her and felt something rare in war, something called peace, waiting at the edge of choice. Back on the Krell homeworld, their towers, once full of banners, now lay quiet, their sky, once filled with warships, now empty. Their young looked up and saw no glory in battle, only shadows of those lost for nothing. Zyra turned away from the screen. His fingers hovered over the command panel. He had the power to launch one final strike, to reduce Earth to ash, to make history fear the name Krell forever. But he looked once more at the recording of a human child drawing stars with crayon on a bunker wall, laughing through the shaking ground, smiling despite the thunder war. He looked at a recording of Hannah playing the violin, as soldiers wept and smiled and remembered. He looked at the message from a dying human soldier, saying, "Tell them we never hated them, we just wanted to be free." And then he made his choice. Across the stars, every Krell ship powered down, every Krell cannon fell silent, every Krell commander stood still as the signal from Zyrith reached him, a single message, not a war, not command, not a pride. Just 5 words spoken with no mask, spoken with no fear, spoken with something close to love. Humans are not to be messed with. On Earth, a cheer rose across continents, across oceans, across cities and deserts and forests. People cried. People danced. People remembered those they lost and held close those who remained. In the secret lab, Professor Zane turned off the pulse device. His students smiled and hugged and laughed, not because they had won, but because they had survived. In orbit, Mira raised a toast of stars and whispered, "May we never forget why we fought." And deep in the heart of a peaceful Earth, a new story began, a story not of war, not of fear, but a memory of growth, of warning, and of wonder. And that story would be passed on forever through time, through stars, through every voice that dared to whisper, "This is Earth, and we are not to be messed with."